Good evening, everyone. I hope you've had an amazing day and are ready for our today's event where we are going to talk about credibility and leadership. As John C. Maxwell has very well said, credibility is a leader's currency. With it, he or she is solvent. Without it, he or she is bankrupt. And today, I have with me two great leaders who are going to talk about credibility and leadership. May I please welcome Brigadier Sushil Bhasin ji, who is a military inspired leadership coach. And I also have with me a very special guest all the way from America. But I would not want to welcome him with my words. Rather, I would like to invite him with a very special video. So here I present our special guest of today's evening.
I'd like you to think about the world today and ask yourself, are you happy with it? I know I'm not. It is my purpose. It is my life mission to tip the scale between those in the world that are credible and those that are dubious. This is something that we have to do together, and I invite you to join me.
Good morning to you, sir. How are you doing today? And we welcome you with open arms and open hands to this live show. Thank you so much for being here.
Oh, it's absolutely my
And
pleasure.
open hearts.
Yes, and open hearts. There, sir
Beautiful.
said it.
It's great to be here. Good evening to you all.
Seeing the video, we can all see how so many different things you do. You are an entrepreneur, you are a global credibility expert, you're a TEDx speaker. How do you manage to do so many different things in the 24 hours that we all have got?
you know, we all have the same amount of time, right?
Yeah.
And the interesting part is I call myself, and I just haven't heard this term be used often, a parallel entrepreneur, not a serial entrepreneur. And so typically, even if I may have, think of it as juggling balls, even if I have 4 or 10 balls being juggled at once, there's always a primary one that I'm putting my real efforts into. So what I like to do is I like to solve a problem, document how to solve a problem, hire people to do that for me so I can get a recurring revenue stream and then move on to the next problem. And so it's a series of things I've done over time that then add up to a bigger picture.
I think that's a great learning for us. Bhasin, so you have a very interesting way of, talking about the same thing of how you talk about, automation and then, just giving your task to different people. So would you like to talk about how you can do, n number of tasks in the same amount of hours that we all have?
One thing, Rajvi, is that whenever I have had a conversation with Mitchell, every time I find that we quite resonate with each other and our opinions just happen to be coinciding. Uh, Having done a lot of work in the field of time management, and I always also say there's nothing called time management, it is self-management. Time remains the same. You're not doing anything about time. Time management would be if I have a way of using 23 hours of my time today and use the saved hour tomorrow and make it 25 hours tomorrow. Or I can slow down my time, or I can speeden it up, which I can't. So you have to manage yourself. You have to manage your life, not manage time. But yes, when we say time management, that is what is implied. Having said that, I've been saying for years, you have 86,400 seconds a day, no more, no less. And I also say that that's the only resource that is equal with your competitors, and everyone has the same 24 hours. So you are an level play field as far as that is concerned.
Yes.
And also, you you know that's the only resource which is predictable. You don't know how your business is going to be next year. You don't know what market will be next year, but you know that next year and the next 10 years and the next 100 years, the day will still have 24 hours.
Yes,
So
indeed.
in your planning, if you plan, and I was talking to some entrepreneur group yesterday, thanks to my friend Sanjay Vadhwa who got me onto that group. It was, I was talking about the same thing and saying, as entrepreneurs, are you able to leverage time? And that is exactly what Michelle just said, that he hires people to do it, which means that you outsource your time. What does he do? He buys time. If he employs a person and he pays that person for 8 hours, he has bought that person's 8 hours time. That is added to his time. So that means in a day, he can get much more done because he's added other people's time to his lifetime. And
Yes.
that is the way you can manage your time beautifully. So I
Thank you.
really,
Thank
really like what he said, and I believe in that, and I advocate that.
you.
So you have a team, and sometimes it's not only your team, you hire people, which means you outsource outside your team as well.
Yeah, indeed. I think that's a very good start to today's
There
topic.
is another aspect I must say before you go further, and that is what pandemic taught us.
Hmm.
Pandemic taught us these time zones very well, which was not earlier. We hardly really bothered so much about them. But now, every time in our webinars, you get people from different countries you are quite relating to. Like we know that now Michelle has just got up and must have just had early breakfast, or maybe having breakfast after this. And we are going to be having dinner after we finish
Yeah,
with this call. Okay,
indeed. Yes.
so now I relate to it. Earlier, it was difficult to imagine that he would be having breakfast when we are going to have dinner.
Hmm.
Now, in that, the beauty is that I've known people in other countries who come to, they come to a webinar, or they hire people from India. So while they are sleeping, the team is working. When they get up, the job is done.
Yeah.
So imagine that you have eliminated the night out of your life as far as
Wow.
time is concerned, because
Yes.
you have employed people from another part of the world. When you are sleeping, they are working on your behalf. So that means you are working 24 hours. Instead of you working, you delegate it to somebody else. So
Yeah.
that is another way of leveraging time.
I think it's a very good start to today's session where we have, two different leaders from two different time zones, as rightly said, one all the way from America, one from India. And we're talking about a very important topic of leadership and credibility. I would like to go really to the bottom of credibility. Michelle, sir, as the global credibility expert, how do you define credibility? And how can one become credible, especially in today's digital world, I'll say? Because I think we've all evolved from the um, daily meeting and just the offline world to the online world. So how can one become credible in this online world?
So what I ended up doing is interviewing over 500 thought leaders on credibility. And
Hmm.
one of my superpowers is helping people articulate their clarity, the clarity of which they serve others.
Hmm.
So first, we'll give you the updated definition that came from the interviews. Credibility is the quality in which you are trusted, known, and liked. Now, just so you know, if you watch my TEDx, so I have a TEDx, it was the 28th most popular in 2021. It's
Hmm.
called We Are Losing Our Humanity. And I'm tired of watching it happen. And so I want to make a point that if you are credible, guess what you're doing? You're also being more humane to other people. And so this is a way that we can actually not have a separation between the jerks that many people were taught to be as a business person versus the really nice, loving father, mother, daughter, son, right? So the thing is, if we're credible, and that is if people trust us, if people know us, if people like us, and underneath each of those are 10 skill sets that we need to focus on. And so, if you want to put my TEDx into the chat so people can actually see that over time, I do, as you can see, I have a book called Credibility Nation. But what's really more important is following that heart. It's showing up as that same person in every scenario. We were taught to wear a facade in different scenarios. And the thing is that's really painful. That's really time consuming. It's difficult to do. The ability for us to be trusted, which is still the primary thing that people focus on, is the ability to be authentic, to have external integrity, to have vulnerability, to be coachable in every situation. I'm just going to walk through the other two, and then I'll give a break. In terms of being known, it's essentially being a servant leader, being of service to others. It's showing your intent and commitment to do the right thing, and it's having internal integrity. And one of the things you'll notice, integrity is the only skill set that's there twice, and it was so important. I separate out external integrity versus internal integrity. External is associated with trustworthiness. Internal is associated with being known, when somebody gets to know you. And then we'll just talk about the last thing. There are two skills associated with being liked. It is in business and in life. It's as simple as possible to be likable. Okay. One, share your stage. I call it spreading cred dust, sharing the ideas, thoughts, and actions of others. And the second is showing respect. Now, how do you show respect? You come early, you come prepared, you come on time, you come with your heart. And you had mentioned that, Sushil, at the beginning of the conversation, is coming with an open heart into a business meeting allows people to see you, allows people to feel you.
Yes.
And so what is credibility? It is being you, that same person, wherever you are, and letting people truly see you. And the first words out of your mouth is, how can I be of service?
And not only say it, but feel it. And what I have seen is credibility, like he said just now, is being you. So I'll give you a little example. I was being coached by somebody. Okay. And like what I saw in Michelle's TEDx talk, and I also put the link there for people to watch it, because it's a TEDx talk which must be watched. So this gentleman was teaching me how to be dubious. And what he did was, he was telling me, he told me, he said, "Sir, I have seen you all over your social media. You're doing so well, but there's one big problem with you, your weakness." I said, "What's that?" He said, "You're too approachable. You're too approachable. Anyone can call you. You got your phone number there. And you keep talking to students, your college students. You talk to them. I am not available to anyone. My number is not known to anyone. They crave to talk to me because I have a secretary, and everything gets routed through her." And I told him, I said, "I'm sorry, I can never do that. Because for many years, I've told people, when you are a student of mine, you are a lifelong student, please call me anytime. I've said this for 10 years now. How can I go back and say, now I am not available to you?"
Mm-hmm.
Yes, I make them understand that I am not always available. If I am not answering them now, I'll answer them later. But I can't shut myself off, because that's not me.
Yes.
That's not me. People say that should be done. I don't know who decides what should be done and what should not be done. But when people see you in the real sense, I've had people say, Sir, I thought I was going to come and meet a brigadier. Oh my God, you are not like a brigadier. I said, why? Are brigadiers having two horns on their head? What are they? So he said, no, sir, but they, you are too liberal and too sort of lenient to
Easy to
be.
talk to. Easy to talk to.
So I said, I'm a human being first and a brigadier later. I can't stop being human. And that's
Yes.
what Michelle says. We are losing our humanity.
Yes, we indeed
Let's
are.
not let's first be human and then be anything else. I loved Ashish Vidyarthi when I went to his house when he invited me for breakfast. He said, I told him, I said, you're such a celebrity actor. And I'm amazed by the way you rang me up and you made sure that I was, welcomed. My name was already there in the gate and you received me so well. He said, sir, I'm a human being, an actor, and a speaker in that order.
Right.
And I
Hmm.
loved it. I loved it. Yeah. So I think
Sure,
that's
sir,
a
do you
very
want to add
important thing.
something to this?
Just a little thing. Listen, if you're watching this live or you're watching the repeat, there are people who are going to tell you, just like the coach who hopefully is no longer your coach, but just like the
No, no,
coach who had
I've thrown
told
him out of
you,
my life.
is they're going to tell you to do something that you're going to feel uncomfortable doing. And they're
Yeah.
going to say, all of the other people I've coached are doing that and it works. What I'm going to tell you, and this came from when I was practicing for my TEDx, a guy by the name of Joe Lau. He was my 10th reviewer and he gave me this advice, and I'm now want to share it with you. He is innocent in what he's saying. He's innocent because that's what he was taught and those before him were taught. So people will propagate, and dubious behavior are things which really they feel uncomfortable. Even if they work, it doesn't mean you should be doing it, right? So if you feel like you have an open heart and your students are your students for life, your students are your students for life. You don't need to create arbitrary boundaries. There's
Yes.
some people who need to do that, and that requires, it's a different mindset. You need to play in the world that's right for you, and people who give you advice are not necessarily giving you advice many times because they're malevolent or mischievous. They're giving you advice that they think works. It just may not be advice which is on the scale of credibility on the high end.
I think we're all living in a very, in a world where we want to please the society more than we want to please ourselves. So we think of a way that what the society will like, I shall do that. But what about you at the end of the day? That's the question, I think. Where are you lost in the middle of that whole society? As you very rightly said, that this we're losing our humanity. We're all under the the hats of brigadier, or the hats of CEO of a company, or a leader. We're actually losing the human essence of us. Those big titles have made us, I don't know, I think we all just think that we've reached this title and we are the owner of the world and we can say anything and everything, and we have that right. But where's that human essence lost? What about the human you? Can you, as a human you, say something to someone else? I think that's a very it's a very good thought that we all must think of, maybe just once before sleeping. That who am I? Am I a leader? Am I a owner? Or am I a human being? I think that's where the shift might happen. Yes, sir.
Rajni, I want to add something here and say that,
Ji.
see, there are people who, for example, say that, okay, they maintain that distance and they don't want to
Mhm.
be, that's also okay. It's not wrong. They're not being dubious about it. That is their lifestyle, and maybe their work demands that. If a person is doing research or he's an academician, he may be wanting that space for himself and he
Mhm.
doesn't want to be surrounded by people. It's okay. What is not okay is when you have double standards. Sometimes you're there, sometimes you're not there. People don't know who you are. So you have to have that one personality which people recognize. So, like what he said in the definition also, that people know you as that person, and that image doesn't keep changing. You see,
Yes.
in the army, we have a Jawan, a soldier who helps us with certain, things which is he's called our buddy. So I had a buddy, and I was commanding a training establishment in Bangalore. And one day when I was very busy, I came for lunch. I had a quick lunch, and I had to get back to another conference. And in while I'm having lunch and busy with my thoughts on something, he said, "Sir," he announced that there was somebody to come and meet me, the religious teacher of a unit I had commanded earlier. So I told him, please tell him I have no time right now. He can come in the evening or something like that. And I went away and I forgot. When I came back in the evening and I'm having a cup of tea, this chap tells me again, "Sir, he's still waiting for you." I said, "Why the hell do these people come?" Then he never took an appointment. He didn't take permission that he can come and see me in my house. Nobody walks into brigadiers' houses like that. At that time, he didn't do anything. In the evening, when he found me a little cool, he said, "Sir, other brigadiers are not like you, and you are not like them. You have all our soldiers know that if you have a problem and you genuinely want somebody to help you, go to Brigadier Bhasin, he'll help you. You have helped hundreds of people. Can you now say that this one person I will not take? And are you going to change the rituals? You have never had anyone taking permission earlier, so people are not used to taking permission.
Yeah.
Now, the point is you create a reputation for yourself and then you be that. You be that. You don't keep changing every day. And you may have to, after 10 years, I may like to change something, but then again, I become consistently, I don't keep changing. Michelle, does that go with your idea of credibility that when you say you're the same person whom who people think you are? That
Yeah.
means you are what people perceive. You are not different. They know it's not that some people you don't know what to think of them because they are different every day.
But
It's if you have the intent and commitment to do the right thing, when situations crop up, it's easier for you to see. I'll give you two. I shared with you all the 10 elements of credibility, but let me share two that are really important, right? And if you do just these two, actually, you need to do all 10 in some area. But if you do just these two or think about these two, it's one, being a service leader, being of service to others. What you were doing in that scenario is you're being a service to others as a human,
yeah,
right? And here's the second, and this one's really important. This is what most of us have forgotten, is no matter where you are in life, you also need to be coachable. So even as a brigadier, even as a CEO, even as a professional athlete, I know of professional athletes that have four, five, six coaches, A, because they can afford it, but B, because they recognize they need it, because there are aspects, they're a specialist who can help them in different aspects of who they are and what they do.
yeah,
And so going through life, recognizing the humility that beautiful lesson you can come from somebody who is your senior. That's what we were taught. You're a junior, right? If you're over 50 these days, how many of you learned from your grandkids how to use a computer and how to use technology, right? So anyone can be your coach.
yeah. I think this is a very, very, powerful saying in India. We always say that, there's no, stop age to learning. You're learning till your last breath because there's always something new that's going to come in and you will have to learn. Maybe from someone younger to you, maybe from someone elder to you. You should have that power to learn and that capability to learn. And even that acceptance of learning, do not lose out on the acceptance part because I think that's why a lot of people lose it. That I have grown up, I know everything about the world. Why do I have to learn from someone junior? But I think maybe that junior knows something better or something different than what you know. So I think that acceptance to learn and grow should be always there. Yes, sir. Bhasin, sir.
Rajvi, I want to add something here again. I just love that being coachable and having a coach.
Yeah.
Uh, I don't think formally I had any coach before while I was in the army. In the army, your seniors coach you, but that's a very informal coaching, and there's nothing very structured and formal about it.
Mm.
Yes.
But when I went to attend the Tony Robbins program UPW in Sydney in 2015, and when you have Tony Robbins at that at that level, the highest level, the most known motivational speaker, or a self help guru, and whatever you call him, when he said that I have six coaches. And then what he said something, he said, I want to be world class. If I want to be number one in the world, I go to the number one coach in that particular field. I don't take a number two. Okay. And like what Michelle said, one, you can afford it. And secondly, because you are upping your game, that you realize the value, why you want to invest that money, because you know that he's going to give you that value of information or that value of training. So he said, I have a business coach because I have six businesses, and he tells me which business is doing well and where should I need, where do I need to spend more time on and all that. He said, I have a physical fitness coach because I realized that if I have to do it for long, I have to be physically fit. And we got introduced to his physical fitness coach. He was there, and we did a few exercises with his fitness coach. Okay. He has um, he has another financial coach. He had about five, six coaches. It gave me a good idea. Then I also underwent as a little gift from him because there was some contest and I won that. And I got a 30 minutes coaching from one of his coaches. And I learned that I need to be coached. And then when I came back to India, I hired, and even as of today, I have three coaches who coach me. All my these six books which you see on my background, I have a coach called Satish Purohit who has helped me with all these six books. So you need to have a coach, and I think I just wanted to second that and reinforce what Michelle said. A leader has to be coachable because you need to you need to learn to be constantly improving.
Yeah, indeed. Yes. You need to always, as I said, you should have that acceptance to keep growing and learning in life. Again, as I talked about very famous statements, there's another very famous statement, fake it till you make it. Bhasin, sir, don't you think that faking makes you lose your credibility and your, originality and your authenticity?
So there was a little debate happening on LinkedIn a few days back when somebody asked this question. And my views, which I put on LinkedIn as well, was that the intention of the person who wrote this quote was not to fake it with integrity issue, which people misunderstood or misrepresented. Fake it here was that even if you don't do it, you act to do it, you keep repeating. That means you are repeating that act to make it perfect. That is what is implied by faking. And then I got a very, very interesting idea from LinkedIn itself by a friend of mine called Shilpa Jwani, who said, I don't say that, I say frame it till you make it. Frame it till you make it. That means you make a vision, you make a frame for yourself that this is where I want to be.
Yeah.
And then when you have made that frame, continuously work towards that till you make that frame, which I think also brings me to a very interesting story, which is one of the lessons of Jack Canfield in his book called 64 Success Principles. Sorry, the book is Success Principles, and there are 64 principles in that. And what he said was very interesting, that there were two boys who used to be in a hostel. One wanted to be the uh, US Open golf champion, and the other one wanted to always be um, a radio jockey, or was it a video anchor or some? No, I think it was a radio jockey those days. And then they used to, every Sunday, he used to make him stand on the bed which was representing the victory stand, and he would put a medal around his neck, and that person would take a sort of imaginary mic and speak into that mic and say, and here, ladies and gentlemen, is my friend, whatever his name was, the US Open champion. Every Sunday they used to do it. And then many years later, this was exactly the scene on the US radio show, that That person became the US champion, golf champion, and this man did become a radio jockey. Now, that is what is called frame it till you make it. Because they made a frame, they wanted to know exactly that they're going to be there, and they practiced it, they manifested it.
Yeah, I was just about to say it. Bhasin, so can now we're talking about framing it till you make it. The same thing, I think now the newer generation is doing it using a word called manifestation. So
Yeah.
how will that be different? But I think you've really, brought that inside in this.
Yeah, but if you listen to Mel Robbins, firstly, I want to tell the audience here that uh, the word manifestation in Google has
Mhm.
gained prominence in the last 2 years by 75%.
Yeah.
75% increase in the word, in the keyword called manifestation. And manifestation by many people has been misunderstood. I've heard a lot of people say that if you keep saying every day in the morning, you get up and say, I'll do it. No, it doesn't happen with just thinking. It doesn't happen by just doing affirmations. It is by actions.
Yeah.
And Mel Robbins has explained it beautifully. She says, every time you manifest something, you say, what is the first step? What is the first baby step you're taking to move in that direction? So, manifestation is acting your perceived vision, and not just believing it'll happen.
Again, frame it till you make it. Going back again to frame it till you make it. Michelle, sir, what are your views on this statement of fake
You
it till you
know,
make
it if you think about the world, the way I think about it is have a scale. One
it? Mm-hmm.
side of the scale are people who are credible,
Mm-hmm.
and the opposite side of the scale, I call it dubious. The reason I call it dubious is that there are people who can act dubious who are not really dubious. They're just performing that they're performing things that are in a dubious area, very similar to what your coach wanted you to do.
Yeah.
So, fake it till you make it is by far one of the most stupidest, dubious things I've ever heard in my life. Because what that means is they're telling you to be dishonest
Yeah.
to those people you're serving, to fake that you know the answer. Well, how can you be coachable? How can you have the intent and commitment to do the right thing if in your practices you're teaching somebody to do something that they should not be doing?
Yes, indeed. Indeed.
So I might have a different statement than even frame it till you make it. I might say something as simple as be a credible human and be of service. Because what's interesting is if you're of service, and do you mind if I show? I'm going to show. Do you mind if I show just one chart? Let me just
Yeah.
show one chart, and this will be a way in which I can help share something. Let's see,
You can get
share.
share screen on and I'll project that for the audience.
All right, there we go. All right. So, hold on. We're seeing are you now seeing the black
Yes.
box?
Yes,
Okay.
we can see it. Thank you.
So you asked me at the beginning of the conversation, and now we're talking about fake it till you make it. So let me tell you all in one area, and this is one of my favorite ways to think about life, and that is you know what the inputs are, or if you have something you need to get done, maybe the first thing you want to do is what is the expected output. So instead of faking it till you make it, let's say you pick up a client, you want to be of service, and you figure out what is the output that you want to deliver with that client. You then go back and you look at the input. Who am I today? What can I do? What am I capable of? And then where we as humans often get stuck is inside the black box. And so you don't want to fake it inside the black box. If you're working with a client, if the first words out of your mouth is, listen, I'm glad you have trust in me that I can do this. I haven't done it this way before. Do you mind if we do it together? Right? That's not faking it till you make it. That's being authentic.
Yes.
That's actually showing who you are. And so what I'm going to say is go on the journey inside the black box with your client if they want to work with you. And if they don't want to work with you, it wasn't meant to be, and that's okay. And this is how, if you're talking about outsourcing, don't get stuck in the black box. A book that I particularly liked reading was Dan Kennedy's, which is Who, Not What. And so if you have a project, you know what the output is, you know what the inputs are. Anytime inside the black box, you could find somebody else who can do it for you. This is how you go and expand your capabilities, whether it's somebody on staff or somebody you're hiring as an outside expert. Who can you do to help you get the black box done? I just think the thought process here is, if you are credible and you want to be of service to others, don't fake it till you make it. Be you. Be transparent. Like if you're a parent, you're not going to tell your kids you know how to do something when you can't. Now maybe you will, because that's what you were taught. But the current generation of parents that I see, they're being much more transparent with their kids. Because how do you prepare your kids? And by the way, being a manager inside a company, being a manager inside a military organization, the best training you could possibly have, because you're training how other people can be motivated to get to an end result. And you don't want to command and control was the path of the past. Being able to lead because people want to follow you is the command, is the path of the future.
That's very nicely said. Just be you, whoever you are. You know something, you don't know something. Be very honest and authentic from day one. Because if you lie on day one saying I know it, and then you do not deliver it, there's a totally different reputation of you going out in the market. So think about that. I think that's a very, that's one thing we can look at. I want a good reputation of mine going out, so just don't fake it. Just tell the truth. Wow, I was just kicked out of the stream. I love this digital world. Just kicks you out anytime it wants. That's a very nice way.
I think that was Sushil. I think that was Sushil playing around.
Yes, I do think so.
I was experimenting. Yeah.
Oh wow, sir, I love it.
I love that.
You. Amazing. So going to credibility, what do you think are the most important pillars of credibility, and how do we just use those pillars in our daily lives as well? Not entrepreneur life, not coaching life, just daily life. For a day-to-day person, how can we use pillars of credibility to just be a better person or a better version of oneself?
Maybe I'll take that to start, Sushil, and then you can add to that. I think one of the things I'm going to recommend is, I do have a YouTube channel. It's under the brand Credibility Nation, and I answer as many credibility questions as I can in 10 minutes once a week. And so there's now 50 episodes. And one of my friends sent me a note yesterday. He just streamed 11 episodes. I'm like, that's a lot of time. I'm like, he goes, oh, I loved it. And this episode helped me do. So I answer that question all the time, right? How do you just be you? And I think the most important thing is what's the most important pillar? That's a great question. If you ask the world, so there are 3 pillars: trust, know, like. Yeah. If you ask the world, they're going to tell you trust, right? They're going to tell you, because I did a survey of my LinkedIn community, and 73% went for trust over know and like. Now,
but how do I trust you without me knowing you or liking you?
See, now you got something really interesting. In the past, we technically would trust people because of their title or their seniority.
Yeah.
Right. So it is important to get to know you. So the thing is, those first words, like if I get to your website, right, and I'm not physically with you, and I get to your website, I'm actually allocating you somewhere between 3 to 5 seconds to determine if I trust you enough to do what you say you're going to do, before I want to then invest the energy, maybe a minute or 2, to get to know you a little bit better.
Yeah.
Right. And so what happens is, how do you show up? Like when you actually first jump on somebody's social media presence, or I call it asynchronous. If you get on somebody's asynchronous presence when they're not physically there, do they generate enough trust that you want to then spend the energy to get to know them? Okay. And so we've got something. This is new since we've spoken last. I've got something once a quarter called the Ultimate Credibility Boot Camp, where we actually help people understand how their prospects, how their customers see them online. As I'm getting to know you better, and
Yeah.
even let's say I spend 2 or 3 minutes getting to know you,
Hmm.
I need to not just have you build on your trust. I need to see that you're likable,
Yeah.
right? And the interesting part about likability is the more likable you are, it compensates a little bit for the know and the trust components, right? The know and trust pillars. And so if you had two people um, who were almost equally capable, and maybe one's a little bit better than the other, but the person who is a little bit less is significantly more likable,
Yeah.
and you're going to decide who to hire, who do you end up hiring, right? So it's interesting on those pillars, because you asked me a question that was asked in a way that people haven't asked before. What's more important? It really is trust, no like, in that order. On the other hand, when you're making a financial decision and you've spent time understanding, like ends up having a good it compensates for some of the others.
Yeah, I think it's different for different zones, you know. I mean, we'll have to see which works better when. Just be adaptable to change again. Change when the best is needed. Yes, Bhasin, sir. Over to you.
I think it's very well said, and I would also certainly go for likability, because what happens is when you meet somebody or you see him online, if there is certain amount of or any reason of you're not liking that person, you won't even spend time to see whether it's trustworthy or not, whether you'll just ignore. So
Ignore.
I think the gate to enter and put your, if you're talking about a foot in the door, it is likability. Only when
I,
the likability is there will the other two be explored.
I think how the Gen Z says it, our vibes should match. If yours and mine vibes are not matching, I'm not exploring you more. I've had enough exploring you, you know. Likability, vibe check. I mean, that's how our generations now change the same old things, you know. My vibes should match with you, and only then I will trust yours, give my more time to you. So I think it's a very, you know, creative way of looking at credibility. So, you know, moving on to the leadership element of our today's event, how do you think is credibility important for leaders, and how can a leader become credible?
Okay,
Michelle, sir.
before I get to answer that question,
Hanji.
I want to also say that I'm so happy that we have a Gen Z person here, the new generation. See, now that's another element that you get to hear. Otherwise, both of us from an older generation probably be in our own world, talking about the things that we believe. But today we have to deal with people of your age, and it's good to know your views as well.
I think
So
the same
yes,
things are coming back, just in more, you know, funkier words. Let's just put it that way. I think the old pattern is again coming back to life. We're all believing in the old same patterns, especially post pandemic. We're going back old school, but just with more funkier names like manifestation. You know, this was not something we all did before pandemic. Post pandemic, it's become like manifest, manifest, manifest. Or even, you know, like as we talked about vibes, likability. This was not something we really cared about initially, but we're all going back to your your school. I think maybe because of the enormous amounts of coachings and trainings we've all done during the pandemic, we've all spent enormous times on screen learning something new and gone back that era.
yeah. So till I met Michelle, I was always talking about authenticity as the number one quality of a leader. And I had many reasons to say why you need to be authentic. And now, when I watched his TEDx talk, I've had a couple of conversations with him. I heard him speak at the PSS, the Professional Speaker Summit, where he was our esteemed guest a few days back. All I've understood is that we are saying the same thing in two different words. That yes, it is meaning the same thing. Credibility in a leader is so important because a leader has to be influencing people. He has to inspire action. And
Yes.
action does not come from a person who's taken by his followers as dubious or fake.
Hmm.
You know,
Indeed.
now when I look back at my army career, those days we probably never saw it from these angles. But one thing was certainly there, that we could many times, in our own little conversations as junior officers, talk of seniors and say, we didn't use the words dubious, we didn't use the words fake. We use some other words. I'm not saying what we used because they are not very pleasant words for anyone to hear. But you could distinguish that this person is authentic, this person is credible, this person is respected highly because he maintains one thing. And I remember one general, I'll love to take his name, General Balaram. He used to say, don't have loyalty of convenience. Because he used to find that people tilt their thing, okay, because this leader said this, let me say that. And tomorrow they say something else. I've had an officer in my own battalion, he was a second in command, and he would every day have one drink because the commanding officer liked a lot of drinks. And he would come in the evening to the mess and he would have 3, 4 drinks. And this guy would give him company with one drink. I was a teetotaler, I never touched it. So I used to have my soft drink. He used to have one drink, and the commanding officer had 3 drinks, and we were only 3 officers there. This commanding officer went on posting, another one came. And the other one who came didn't drink at all. So he would say, please go ahead, you have your drink. He says, no, sir, I never drink. I said, what? Till last month, you were drinking one drink every day of your life because the other commanding officer was drinking. What did I think of him? I lost the respect for him because I found that he's a yes man. He would say, he's now become a different personality to please this personality. Will that leader ever be respected? No. And will that leader be able to lead people? And we lead people to war, which means that if they don't trust you, if they don't like you, they don't trust you, they will not follow you. They will not be able to perform. And therefore, you've lost your basic foundation of leadership. So I think with credibility comes the most essential thing. Everything else comes later, but you have to build your credibility. And another thing which I have experienced is it takes you ages to build it. It doesn't take you very long to lose it. So
Yeah.
you have to be, you have to be your normal self. You have to be a true self. The moment you like trust, I mean, credibility means that if you lose trust, to rebuild trust becomes difficult. So
Ji.
that's my take on credibility for leaders, and I certainly feel that's very, very important.
Over to you, Michelle. So, what are your views on leadership and credibility?
I so love how similar, although our backgrounds are so different, how similar um, our viewpoints are. So I know we've had conversations before, and for the audience who's watching this, the reason why when somebody says all you have to do is be authentic or all you have to do is have integrity, the reason why that doesn't work for me, because you could authentically be drunk on power. You could authentically be a serial killer. So that doesn't make you credible. I mean, it does from a perspective, it makes you a credible serial killer, but it
Yes.
doesn't mean you have the right intent and commitment to do the right thing for the audience you're dealing with. Same thing on integrity. And I think with leaders, probably the thing I'll spend the most energy on is when I was doing this research, I realized that their integrity needed to be two elements. They needed integrity was the only skill set of the 10 that was there twice. Now, what I'll tell you is I didn't know why, right? And for a long time, probably for about 12 months after I did my book, after I did the TED Talk, I didn't know why. And it turned out that there was a woman I was talking to. Her name was Cheryl Lynn. She focuses on joy. And we were having a conversation, and she said something that really lasted in my mind. She goes, Mitchell, do you realize that happiness is on the outside and joy is on the inside? And I'm like, wow, that's profound. And I went to bed and I woke up and I realized somewhere between 12 to 14 months after publishing my research, why integrity was there twice. Because there's the external integrity, which you need to demonstrate, and that's associated with being trusted.
Yeah.
And this gets, Rajvi, this gets into what you were talking about. There's the internal integrity, which is you. And so, Sushil, I'm going to say something that I haven't said before, just so people can hear this. So what happens a lot with leaders is they feel like since they have the external integrity, they could do whatever they want with their internal integrity because it's them, right? They could, in your case, drink just to please their boss, or cheat on their diet, or cheat on their spouse, or cheat on their taxes. The problem is if you're leading others and you show that you're lacking internal integrity, it affects everything else.
It does, yes.
Now, what I will say is, yes, if you do something bad and people find out, you will lose some of your credibility. It's how you respond to that determines whether or not you lose all of your credibility, or if you start showing up immediately, yes, I made a mistake, you start showing up vulnerable. You start showing up authentically as a person who apologizes for the mistake they made and not realizing how important this was. You don't lose as much credibility, and you could start building it back because you're wearing the mistake you made on the outside as a lesson you've learned. And so I just wanted to say is I also wouldn't push so far as, it takes forever to build and you can lose it in seconds. Yes, and. Right? It's how you show up in life that determines how much you lose and where do you, for instance, there's a great example. If you're climbing a mountain, each step along the way, you're going to put a stake in the ground and then you could tie the rope there. And so that if you end up slipping and falling, you have a point that you catch onto. Now you have fallen a little bit and you need to climb back up, but you don't actually fall to the bottom and die. And so that would be a good example of you don't necessarily lose everything depending on how you show yourself to the world.
That is brilliant. I think I've got my answer, or I've realized that actually when I was saying that you build it up it takes you time and you lose it, it's trust. But credibility, now I see from your perspective, and what you're saying is absolutely right. I remember we had a case, I think a few years back. I hope I'm remembering my facts correctly. I think it was Maggie noodles or something. There's something gone wrong, and there was a lot of flack in the market. People are going against it, and the MD showed up, I think, on TV or something, and issued a public apology and said that I'm going to take all that batch back from the market, and anyone who's consumed it, I'm prepared to compensate. That has been a mistake at our end, and we are rectifying. Now, because he did that, like what Michelle just said, that credibility was not lost. People accepted that human angle of a mistake made because it was promptly apologized by the head of the organization. And I think Maggie Noodles also as a company didn't lose their reputation or their credibility because the way it was handled. So I would take that as a very big lesson, that it is how you respond to such a thing. If you have, if you have deviated from your path, because you can't be walking a perfect path all your life. It's not possible.
No.
Uh, so when you deviate from your path and you have taken a corrective action to get back on the path and you have acknowledged it, I think
Mhm.
it works very well.
Well, I
And
think
that
you
also
you
brings me that also brings me to another example. When I was in the army, I did a workshop. The first time I did a workshop in the civil, 1987, I was in Delhi, and in that I learned from one of the civilian trainers, very high level trainer, who taught me that if you go do something wrong and you apologize and have the courage to apologize, it brings you back to where you were.
Yes.
I was going back from that workshop in the evening and I realized that in the morning I had scolded one of my uh, havaldars, my subordinates, for no fault of his. And I think because I was annoyed on something else and he came my way and I just, shouted at him. So instead of going home, I first went to the mess, met this chap, and I said, I'm extremely sorry for scolding you this morning. I realized it is not your fault. Please forgive me for that. Now, it took me a little courage to do it. We used to never do it, but the example given that by that person was so strong that I wanted to experiment and see what happened. And I'm telling you, I think I shot up in his respect many times because he went around telling people that, look here, Saab came and apologized to me, which means that they feel that he can also make mistakes, but he owns up. He owns up. And then that also encourages them to own up a mistake if they make. So that
Indeed.
becomes a type of a ritual, it becomes a custom in an organization where people don't hide their mistakes. People
Own up to
uh,
their mistakes.
own up, and owning up also is a commitment to correction.
Yes, indeed, indeed, indeed.
actually that was a great story. I know we got to wrap up. That was a great story because what it said is if you do something, let's say bad, and you get caught. So in this case, in the mind of the person you were working with during the day, they lost a little bit of your trust because you yelled at them for no good reason. But guess what happened? You went in and owned up to it. They then liked you more and they know you a little bit better. And as a result of the know and like, all of a sudden the credibility rose even higher than it was
Uh,
before.
yes, indeed. I think that's a very nice way to wrap up this session. You've just brought us back to credibility, the three important pillars of credibility, and summed them up really, really well. Before we end today's session, any last messages by each one of you for our audience? Michelle, sir, over to you first.
I think just the most important element, just be you.
Yeah.
Be you in all aspects of life. And if the first thing in the world you wake up in the morning thinking about is how can I be of service? Who do I want to be of service to? And then you say, how do I best go about doing it? And be transparent in your actions of who you are and what you do. You will, by definition, be credible.
Thank you. Thank you so much, sir. Bhasin, sir.
I think I just wanted to say, but he, because he got a chance earlier, he said the same thing. So I want to say same thing, that as long as you as a leader understand that you are responsible, you are not a leader without followers. They are very important to you. How are you serving them? How are you serving the organization? Are your organizational goals aligned with your goals, or your goals aligned with your organization goals? Are you serving those people to achieve their goals and the organization goals? If that is always kept in mind, I think that would be the strongest thing that a leader would do to maintain the credibility.
That's a great, just wrapping up a few very, very important lessons that we've learned today. We've learned about credibility, when people actually trust you, know you, and like you. And also, we've broken the entire frame of fake it till you make it, and we've reworded it or renamed it to frame it till you make it. In today's language, manifest it. and actions matter really more than your just words and just affirmations. So I'd really like to thank both of you for giving us your valuable time and for talking on such an important topic. Thank you so much. Hope our audience had great fun and they learned a lot of things from today's session. I hope to see Michelle sir again very, very soon. And Brigadier sir, of course, we'll come back with such shows with new people very, very soon. So thank you so much. And good day to you, Michelle sir. And good night to you, Brigadier
Take
sir.
care. Be very
Thank
credible. See ya.
you. Thank you very much. And
Thank you.
before you go, I want to personally acknowledge and thank Michelle for, uh, you know, uh, accepting my invitation to come on a show with me, because I really, you see, that likability is what started our conversation. And now it is that the likability is that we know each other better and we trust each other better. So, thank you very much for this time. You've invested 60 minutes of your time. And I always say time is life. So you gave us 60 minutes of your life. Thank you very much for
Indeed.
that.
Indeed. Indeed.
Oh,
Thank you
right
so
back
much,
at
sir.
both of you. Thank you.
Thank you, sir. Thank you.